So you want the good news first or the bad news? Good news? All right. The good news is Wuthering Waves' story is finally starting to hit its stride. The not so good news. A lot of people don't realize why. And I think I realized that the reason they don't realize this is because they don't know the lore. And I'm not talking about the game lore. I'm talking about the IRL lore. You see, there's something that happened in the very, very early days of Genshin's life that I guess it's not really realistic to expect people to know. So I'm here to help you guys out. 90% of the story of Wuthering Waves was written 9 months before it came out. After the first closed beta test, maybe the second closed beta test, if I'm remembering correctly, somewhere along those lines, the developers decided to change things because for whatever reason, some people think it's from pushback from China. There's a variety of reasons, but whatever it was, they decided to rewrite it. And this kind of dismisses one of the big criticisms I've seen that, oh, the devs are just kind of throwing stuff at a wall and they don't have a plan. They clearly have a plan because they rewrote 90% of the story. So that's where the plan started, essentially, or most of it, 90% of it. So there's clearly a plan, but more so than just that. They decided to do that, and it had a ripple effect in reality on the story. And this is why we are where we are right now, which is what led up to this point that has finally gotten the story to the point where it's about to basically take off. And me personally, I am very excited. So without further ado, I'm about to explain the lore playlist that will help people understand all this stuff in the event that there's something you missed will be in the pinned comment. Wuthering Waves, from what I was informed of, you can take this with a grain of salt. I would highly recommend that you take this with a grain of salt, a giant grain of pink Himalayan salt or Celtic sea salt. That also works too. Either one, take your pick. Okay. They both have different health benefits. You won't go wrong with either. All right. Originally, I was told that Wuthering Waves was supposed to put Renacida out in like 1.2 or something like that. Like 1.0 was supposed to be originally all of Jinzhou and Mount Firmament and Black Shores. That was 1.0. Jinzhou, Mount Firmament, Black Shores. All right. That's originally how it was supposed to go, from what I was told. But that person could have been wrong. But it makes a lot of sense if you think about it. Why? Because then Renacida would have hit, I think, in 1.2, because 1.1 would have been the transition period. It would have been the festival, the moon chasing festival, and the Somme Noir event where when the night knocks. That's in 1.4. Because even in reality, when you played those events, it felt like an event. It didn't feel like something that you did for the whole patch per se. And I think they just tried to add like little things here and there to make it feel more substantial. But if you imagine 1.0, the prologue of the whole game is Jinzhou, Mount Firmament, and Black Shores. You're now introduced to the concept of the world. You're introduced to Rover. You have like some ideas of what's happening. Then, like I said, 1.1, you have like a little intermediate thing or whatever. And then you hit Renacida. And then that lasts for a year. 1.x ends up ending at Renacida's finale. And then you go into 2.8. Now, the thing about it is, I don't know if this is true, but some people have speculated that we were actually supposed to go to Ashinohara at some point. Maybe even next year. I don't know. Reason being is because like Chisa and all this stuff, but then because of politics, things got moved around. Mind you, I think, you know, when you have an overarching story that has like a lot of moving parts, it is possible to shift certain things, but that might be why Chisa feels so in such a weird space right now, I think. But once again, this is all with a grain of salt. This is like heavy theory crafting territory if you want to go that far. But yeah, but when you look at it from a narrative perspective, all of Lahai Roy, right? Lahai Roy, it was really us understanding a little bit more about like Rover as a character and his mission. So like I said, because lots of questions about Rover. Where you know, who is Rover as a character? Do we have an idea of where Rover comes from? And we got a lot of that information early. I mean, well, not early, but we got a lot of that information in Lahairoi, right? We got some information, introductory information, because listen, this is a gacha game or live service game. So obviously the story is going to expand, but we got a lot of introductory information. After Lahairoi, however, there's nowhere else to go but where the story, like the story has to open up at a certain point, right? Somewhere along the lines, you can't just be explaining what happened in the past. You have to actually move forward. Even though realistically speaking, let's be honest, we kind of want to know what happened in the past still. We want to know more about the Coda Savante. We still want to know more about Rover's homeland for sure. But we also want to know, where is Solaris 3 going? Like as a place. And so where we are right now, it is now time for the actual story to begin. We've got all the information. We understand what the Nodians are. We understand what the lament is. And if you don't know what these things are, watch my videos. You know, we have an entire playlist, Life's Lore playlist for Wuwa. And so we know what the Nodians are. We know what the lament is. We know what retroact rain, waveform phenomenon, tacit discourse. We understand these concepts now. We understand what the Somme Noir is. We understand to a degree. If you don't, once again, watch the video I did for Cyberpunk. That actually helps quite a bit. But we know what the Somme Noir is. You know, we have some ideas about how that operates as well. And so we're getting introduced to all these concepts, these structural concepts, because these are like integral to the whole world of Solaris. It's kind of the point. Tethys system, Somme Noir, you know, all this stuff, Black Shores, like this is like the structural stuff. Everything else, now that all that stuff is like, all the groundwork has been laid, right? The bricks have been stacked. We got our foundation. Now we can actually build something. And this is where this patch right here is doing it. This is where the building begins. And I think this is why Yangyang is such a core piece of the puzzle, that if anything, I'd say Yangyang is like the last piece of the puzzle for real. She's the last piece. Now we're starting to finally understand why. And if you don't fully understand, that's okay. I'm going to be working on some videos for that. But we're starting to fully understand why Yangyang is such, like, why she's a poster girl. Like, why she's relevant. Took us a little bit of time to get there. But I'd say in the grand scheme of things, not that long, in truth. And I'll just leave it at that. In the grand scheme of things, not that long. If you know, you know. But yeah. Now the question is, where do we go from here? As far as I can tell, Yangyang seems to be, there's two things happening. Yangyang basically just said, I want to be at your hip. Which I personally would love. That's just me. I would actually be very happy if Yangyang became like our long-term companion throughout this journey, especially with the importance of her ability and how it relates to the world as a whole. I'd be over the moon. At the very least, we can see that it seems to me she's going to be with us on this journey in Zhuangfang Hold, and potentially they've opened up room, mind you, they've opened up room for her to potentially be with us going to New Federation, because apparently they're the only other ones who can really read her Forte examination report in more depth, it seems, outside of Huang Long. So yeah, we'll have to see. We'll have to see how that works. But all things considered, this makes a lot of sense. This makes a lot of sense. And I think we now, you know, this was not an accident. This was planned since the beginning. The roads definitely led to it, but why? The answer to the big question of why now, I think I've made a very hopefully convincing case as to why this is happening now.
Hey, you. Do the thing.